So we know that the cornerstone of limb salvage is wound healing, and delayed wound healing increases morbidity, affects quality of life, and increases medical costs. Although new endovascular tools and advanced techniques have been described over the last decade, there are still no RCTs or long-term results. And because of the potential risks of dissection, rupture, and thrombosis, pedal loop interventions really haven't gained widespread adoption at this point. So should we perform these interventions? Well, about 11 years ago, Manzi and his team prospectively studied about 1,300 patients. 135 of them had stenotic disease and CTOs below the ankle, and his team really showed a technical success of pedal plantar loop intervention of about 85%. And they showed that functional status was improved and maintained for 1 year, and concluded that pedal artery interventions in CLI patients were feasible, safe, and had positive clinical results of both short and mid-term follow-up. About a decade later, Katsanos and his team really showed the same thing and showed a technical success of about 95%, and also showed that the primary patency rate of pedal artery angioplasty was 50% with a binary restenosis rate of 64% at 1 year. And they really showed that self-expanding stents had a significantly higher restenosis rate and poorer primary patency compared to angioplasty or sirolimus balloon expandable stents. And they concluded that pedal artery angioplasty in CLI patients was again safe and feasible with satisfactory 1-year results, and that stent placement below the ankle really should be reserved for bailout reasons only. In 2012, Kawarda and his team evaluated 85 CLI patients who underwent below knee and below ankle interventions. Based on their analysis, they were able to describe really a pedal arch classification system with 4 patterns of pedal arch disease, and they ultimately concluded that the status of the pedal arch was an independent predictor of wound healing. And in 2017, the Rendezvous registry results were published. This was the first multi-center registry with 257 patients with below knee and below ankle disease. The study evaluated clinical outcomes of pedal artery angioplasty in CLI patients and whether it made a difference in terms of the speed and extent of wound healing. Patients were divided into 2 groups according to whether or not pedal artery angioplasty was performed, and they ultimately concluded that CLI patients who underwent pedal artery angioplasty showed a higher rate of wound healing as well as a shorter time to wound healing. Shortly thereafter, in 2020, Nakama and his group did a sub-analysis of the Rendezvous registry data to assess the effectiveness of pedal artery intervention based on the severity of below ankle disease, of whether it was moderate or severe. And they really showed a high technical success rate and ultimately showed that below ankle interventions improved the wound healing rate regardless of the severity of below ankle disease in CLI patients. A meta-analysis and systematic review was published in 2019 by a vascular surgery group based out of the Netherlands. It was, like I said, a systematic review and meta-analysis of below ankle angioplasty in CLI patients, and they really wanted to evaluate the safety and effectiveness of pedal artery angioplasty and assess whether below ankle interventions after tibial intervention improved clinical outcomes in patients with CLI. 10 articles met the inclusion criteria. It included 478 patients with pedal artery angioplasty performed in 524 legs, and the pooled limb salvage rate and amputation-free survival at 1 year was 92% and 78% respectively. They found that there was no difference in limb salvage or amputation-free survival when tibial intervention only was compared to tibial plus pedal artery intervention. However, wound healing was better and faster when below ankle intervention was performed in addition to tibial artery intervention. So in conclusion, although there are no randomized controlled trials as of yet, studies do show that pedal artery interventions in CLI patients are feasible, safe, and have positive clinical results at both short and mid-term follow-up. The status of the pedal arch is an independent predictor of wound healing. There is no difference in limb salvage or amputation-free survival when pedal artery angioplasty is performed in addition to tibial artery intervention. However, wound healing is better and time to wound healing shorter when below ankle interventions are performed. So should we perform these interventions? I would say yes. Consider below ankle interventions in CLI patients with ulcers or gangrene in the setting of limb salvage when there is combined tibial and pedal artery disease, as well as in patients with isolated pedal artery disease. Thank you.